Major heat and humidity continue to build across the United States over the next few days, and that will be a breeding ground for significant severe weather with damaging winds, large to very large hail, tornadoes, and flash flooding rainfall. And we're going to track it for you across southern Canada, the United States, and the tropics here in this forecast. So if you are a person who enjoys straightforward, reliable, accurate weather coverage across southern Canada, the United States, in the tropics, be sure to subscribe to my channel. We do forecasts daily here on the channel. Like the video, give it a thumbs up, and share it with a friend, family member, and on social media. Good evening, everybody. Hopefully everybody is having a cool evening out there, because look at our temperatures that we saw this afternoon, into the 90s and triple digits across the Great Plains, and record highs in widespread fashion from North and South Carolina into Georgia and Florida this afternoon. As we start the day on Sunday, it will have record warm lows across that very similar areas across the southeast, even as far up into the north as Lake Erie, into the middle 70s. Even upper 70s for low temperatures, a higher springboard of which to start, and we're right back into record territory for North, South Carolina, Georgia, and Florida tomorrow with widespread triple-digit heat, and then we see triple-digit heat from portions of South Dakota all the way south to the Red River Valley there of Oklahoma and Texas. So make sure you're staying hydrated. If your job ventures you outdoors, the best thing to do is find an air-conditioned spot to take breaks in, because even this time of year in the shade, it is still very humid, and it definitely could make you sweat quite a bit. Now, that heat and humidity will continue to threaten the areas of the northern plains, upper Midwest, and the Ohio Valley with severe weather. There is in yellow areas of the central Dakotas up into northwestern Minnesota. Scattered severe thunderstorms possible there as we head through the rest of this evening and into the overnight hours. Dark green surrounding that is as far west as Idaho and as far east as Lake Superior. We do have isolated severe thunderstorms possible in dark green. Same deal over here into the Ohio Valley. Now, there is a tornado risk, so it's not a big tornado risk, but it is a number. So where there's a number, there's a risk. 2% chance of tornadoes in green across North Dakota, parts of South Dakota, and northwestern Minnesota. Another area down here into central and eastern Illinois and into northern Indiana that we're keeping an eye on with a 2% chance of tornadoes through the evening. And then as we go into tomorrow on Sunday, July 27th, a slight risk of severe weather with scattered severe thunderstorms possible in yellow across the central and eastern portions of Minnesota, northern Wisconsin, and the western UP of Michigan. Areas surrounding that into the upper Midwest in dark green, that's where isolated severe thunderstorms will be possible. And we're also keeping tabs on the mid-Atlantic states down into northeastern North Carolina. We could be seeing some isolated severe thunderstorms in dark green there tomorrow as well. Tornado risk will be confined to the upper Midwest. So we're talking eastern South Dakota, Minnesota, northern Wisconsin, and the western UP of Michigan as we go into Sunday. A 2% chance there. Would not be surprised to see an upgrade to a brown area, which would be a 5% in future updates from the Storm Prediction Center if there's a little bit more clarity on more rotation in the atmosphere that would be more conducive to severe weather producing tornadoes. Now let's go and talk about the separate areas we always talk about. Central U.S. first, eastern U.S. second, and then western U.S. third. Here in the central U.S. this evening, we are watching some scattered thunderstorms across the Midwest, areas near Chicago into Indianapolis and Fort Wayne. Also some storms in the high plains, North Platte down here in toward the Denver area and Cheyenne, Wyoming. Keeping an eye on those. A few of those could be severe with primarily damaging wind gusts, but there could be some hail and an isolated tornado threat. As we go through the evening hours, we're going to have a tendency to have a couple of areas of severe storm coverage from portions of central and eastern Illinois into northern Indiana, but a more intense round of severe weather potentially into portions of the Dakotas, and that will be an arcing band of storms that will be moving north and eastward with time as we go into Sunday morning, eventually arriving in north central Minnesota Sunday around daybreak, 7 o'clock in the morning. And then as we go through the day, that will continue to push eastward toward Lake Superior, and a lot of the central U.S. by midday Sunday will be dry, which means the heat and the humidity will be cranking, and that will be raising the levels of storm energy throughout the day. And then we have another area of storm coverage across portions from the upper peninsula of Michigan, northern Wisconsin into central Minnesota, and eastern South Dakota. We need to watch for Sunday evening after dinner time, so about 5 o'clock to 8 o'clock, storms storms will develop, and initially they'll be by themselves. So supercells producing some tornadoes. This is when that 5% tornado risk upgrade may be possible for Sunday. And then as we go into Sunday evening, that will start to shift further south and east, more into central Wisconsin, southern Minnesota as a cluster of severe thunderstorms. By the time we get to daybreak on Monday, that could be moving into southern Wisconsin and northern Illinois, including areas near Janesville, Monroe, Madison, Milwaukee, Rockford, and Chicago, producing some potential damaging wind gusts in excess of 60 miles per hour. Locally heavy downpours, some smaller hail in here, and frequent lightning. So be on the lookout for that into Monday morning. Now let's look at the wind threat, because I think this is a pretty significant threat here into the central U.S. With those storms in the high plains here this evening, we could have one or two producing wind gusts upwards to 70 miles per hour, and that will continue with that cluster that moves up from South Dakota, eventually into North Dakota, and then into northern Minnesota by daybreak on Sunday. Seeing the threat for 60 to 70 mile per hour caliber winds here with this. That could down some trees, that could down branches, power lines, so power outages may be possible with any severe weather with damaging winds. And then as we go through the day on Sunday, that will weaken as it pushes toward Lake Superior. And then as we go into Sunday evening and overnight, a new cluster and complex of storms will be dropping south with widespread 50 to 70 mile per hour winds, eventually arriving in northern Illinois at daybreak on Monday, 6 to 8 o'clock in the morning. And that could produce some power outages over there as well. We also have the threat for a very heavy rainfall with these storms in the central U.S. through Monday morning, potentially an inch or two of rain, especially with our Sunday evening and overnight complex that drops from central portions of Minnesota through the Badger State of Wisconsin and into northern portions of Illinois. We'll keep a very close eye on that for flash flooding. The storm should be moving fast enough to where any one location shouldn't be seeing a significant round of flash flooding, but isolated flash floods will be possible. In the eastern United States here this evening, we're watching for scattered thunderstorms into the Ohio Valley, Indiana, Ohio, western PA. We're going to continue to see that here up until around the time sun sets, but we'll continue to see these kind of episodic rounds of some showers and storms moving through the Northeast, New York State, Pennsylvania, eastern Ohio as we go through the overnight hours. Probably not really severe, but with some locally heavy rainfall. And then as we go through the day on Sunday, we're just going to have a couple rounds of showers and storms, hit or miss across the Northeast and the Mid-Atlantic. And a couple of these could be stronger here, especially into the Mid-Atlantic states, where we could be seeing potentially some 60 mile per hour wind gusts and some quarter size hail. The tornado threat is unlikely, and it's really centered across West Virginia, southern Pennsylvania, Maryland, Delaware, and New Jersey, where that threat will reside on Sunday. And then once we get to Sunday evening, that will wash out and the instability will decrease, so the storm coverage and intensity will decrease as well. Rainfall amounts out here are the heaviest across the Ohio Valley into the Northeast, where we could have those hit or miss storms. 30 miles down the road, you can get an inch and a half of rain in here, and you go west 30 miles and you probably won't see a drop. That's just kind of the nature of these thunderstorms as we go through the rest of the weekend and into the opening stages of early next week. Now, looking at the west, yes, we got showers. Yes, we got thunderstorms across the Rockies that continue here as we go through your Saturday. That will continue to push northward with time into Montana this evening and overnight. And eventually, as we go into Sunday, it looks like a lot of our storm activity that develops will be from northern California into southeastern Oregon, central Idaho, up there into central Montana. A couple of stronger storms may be possible, especially for Montana. That could produce some hail there with the cold air aloft. Other than that, we're really not seeing a lot of monsoonal flow down into the Four Corners region because our ridge is building so strong down there. You get a lot of sinking air, so lots more sunshine versus cloud cover. And you need cloud cover, obviously, to get precipitation. Overall here, the rainfall amounts will be kind of sporadic across the Pacific Northwest. A couple areas could be seeing quarter, half an inch of rain between now and 7 a.m. on Monday morning, July 28th. We're keeping a very close eye on that. Again, flash flooding is unlikely because we just don't have a lot of rainfall there. Going into Monday, July 28th, there is a threat for severe weather from Montana through parts of South Dakota, Minnesota, Iowa, even into west central Wisconsin. Right now, this is a 1 out of 5 on the risk scale, which means isolated severe thunderstorms will be possible in dark green. Changes to this outlook and upgrades will be possible as the Storm Prediction Center kind of dissects more of the environment as we get closer to the day on Monday. How difficult the environment could be is we could be having a lot of instability. Now, a north-south axis of where the strongest instability will be on Monday will be dictated by Sunday evening storms. So it's kind of a domino effect. What happens today will affect Sunday storms. What happens Sunday will affect Monday storms, and so on into early next week. But we have the potential potential for extreme amounts of storm energy. You can see that charcoal color starting to show up here in the Midwest. That's where we could see over 5,000 joules per kilogram of instability during Monday afternoon. And this is one model, so don't take it and run with it, but this is the potential of what the atmosphere is capable of. Monday evening, we could have a cluster of supercells developing back into the northern plains and parts of the upper Midwest, like maybe Minnesota, and this could actually develop into a well-organized line of storms that could produce widespread, intense, damaging winds, whether that's in Wisconsin or in Iowa or northern Illinois, or even if it develops at all, is our best guess right now. Because again, what happens today will affect Sunday storms. What happens Sunday will affect Monday storms. So the north-south axis of this will be affected by that. So the storms on Sunday haven't even formed yet. So that is kind of what we're looking at. But if this does come to fruition, we could be seeing some locally very heavy and torrential rainfall amounts across portions of the upper Midwest. Again, this may or may not come to fruition, but if it does, flash flooding would be a possibility there in the upper Midwest going into Monday. Now, speaking of Monday and into early next week, our ridge is really going to build northward here with a lot of heat and humidity. And by the time we get to the middle of next week, a refreshing, very strong cold front will be dropping south out of Canada into the north central United States, providing relief from the extreme heat and humidity. But before we get there, Monday afternoon, July 28th, widespread 90s and triple digits here out ahead of that. Heat index values, what you don't see on this map, could be exceeding 105 up to 115 in some areas. So make sure again to stay hydrated, especially if your job ventures you outdoors, you're running any errands out there. Just be safe here into the heat. Tuesday, you can start to see the starting stages of our cold front with temperatures in the middle and upper 70s, lower humidity making inroads into North Dakota and northern Minnesota. And then as we go into Wednesday, that drops a bit further south into Nebraska, Iowa, northern Illinois, and Michigan. And then by the time we get to Thursday, Friday, late in the week, look at that. The entirety of the north central and northeast U.S. will be enjoying much cooler and much lower humidity levels as we get to August 1st there on Friday. So let's look here at the transition in between the hot and humid air and the cooler and drier air, because there's going to be thunderstorm activity where the two air masses meet. And that's always where you look for the potential of complexes of storms. We got a very energetic jet stream up here across the upper Midwest. And right in time, there's also going to be a lot of storm energy. So as that transition happens, the heat and humidity going to raise those energy levels in the atmosphere, and that will give a perfect breeding ground for thunderstorms to develop as we go through the middle of the week, especially through Wednesday. And again, this is going to be further up to the north early on in the week, and then pushing further south as we go later into the week. By mid and late week, the storm activity will be down into the central plains and eventually into the Tennessee Valley and the southeast. So it's going to be a slow progression further south through the week, but it will be a step down process as that happens. So here's Tuesday, July 29th, and you can see another storm complex perhaps developing somewhere in the Midwest. We have to watch this for heavy rainfall and severe weather. As we go into Wednesday, July 30th, that may be another complex, maybe a state or so further to the south, perhaps, developing into the central plains, dropping into the lower Mississippi Valley. And then by the time we get to Thursday, Friday, a lot of our storm activity will be from the southern plains into the Dixie Alley region and the southeast. And this could actually provide us with a lot of relief of some rain-cooled air into areas that have been so hot all week long this week and this weekend and even into early next week. For example, the Carolinas, Georgia, and into Florida. Now let's look at the long-range forecast pattern, because you can see into the second week or so of August, from August 4th through August 11th, we are still going to have the remnants of that ridge. There's going to be a trough skirting by southern Canada, providing the chance for cold fronts to move from southern Canada into the upper Midwest. How far south those cold fronts go is our best guess right now. Right now, probably not seeing it go very far south. Just, climatologically, cold fronts don't go that far south this time of year. So there's going to be some heat around, there's going to be humidity around, and there's going to be more chances for showers and storms, primarily up into the southern Canadian prairies, into the upper Great Lakes region as we go between August 4th and August 11th. But there could also be some storms down here at times near the Gulf Coast and into the southeast, providing relief from some of that heat and humidity. Now let's talk about the tropics here, the tropical update in this forecast. National Hurricane Center in Miami, Florida is not forecasting any, it's not expecting any tropical cyclone activity over the next 7 days for anywhere in the Atlantic Basin, including the Caribbean and the Gulf. So that is some some great news. And the reason being is because the Saharan dust is dry air, and that is going to continue to fester westward across the Atlantic Basin, the main development region, the Eastern Caribbean, and toward the Bahamas at times, and that's going to suppress tropical activity at least over the next week, probably even getting into the first week or so of August as well. And there could still, yes, be attempts in between those pockets of very dry air. There could be trying attempts at tropical depressions or weaker tropical storms, but even if one does develop, it probably won't last very long in the Atlantic Basin, because it will be running eventually into a lot of shear, number one, and number two, a lot of drier air from the Saharan dust off of Africa. So big major systems like major hurricanes in the Atlantic are not expected over the next 2 weeks. Let's look here at the East Pacific here in contrast, because there are 3 separate tropical cyclones that could develop over the next 7 days. 2 of them in orange have a moderate chance of developing. One there in the yellow has a low chance right now of developing. The one most pressing is just to the south and east of the Hawaiian Islands, 60% chance of development over the next 7 days. So that is something that we got to keep an eye on. And it's just a wave train of tropical waves moving across eastern Pacific Ocean into the central Pacific, there towards Hawaii. And again, we're watching the Hawaiian Islands. Nothing pressing right now that looks alarming for Hawaii, so no need to panic, but there definitely could be some chances of some of these spokes of energy getting close enough to provide showers and thunderstorms to especially the big island there of Hawaii as we go into the middle of the week, which will be around Wednesday, July 30th and Thursday, July 31st. And then a couple of other systems that could go either north or south of the island as we go into early August. So we're going to be keeping a very close eye on that. So if you like straightforward, accurate, reliable weather information daily here on the channel, we cover southern Canada, the United States, the tropics. Be sure to subscribe to my channel. We'll have another video forecast out for you tomorrow. Like the video, give it a thumbs up, especially if you enjoyed it throughout. Share it with a friend, family member, and on social media. I definitely appreciate it. Thank you all for the great words and kind words here on my comment section in my videos. I always look through those comments. Thank you all for the support. If you have any comments, questions, and concerns, jot them down in the comment section down below the video. I'm here 24/7 all day, all night to answer any and all comments, questions, and concerns that you may have. Thank you all. Thanks for the support yet again, and have a wonderful rest of your Saturday out there.